Eddie Lopez had delivered pizza to many strange places: college dorms at midnight, gas stations with broken lights, motels where nobody wanted to give their real name. One time, he delivered 3 large pepperoni pizzas to a man dressed as a wizard who paid entirely in quarters, then asked Eddie if he believed in dragons. Eddie said yes, because the tip was $5. So Eddie thought he had seen the worst delivery route San Antonio could offer. He was wrong, because on a rainy Thursday night, Eddie delivered 1 medium cheese pizza to a crashed alien queen hiding behind an abandoned shopping mall, and somehow, that was only the beginning of his problem. Eddie was 26 years old. He worked for a small pizza shop called Tony's Famous Pizza. The sign said famous. Nobody knew why. Tony was not famous. The pizza was not famous, and most customers only ordered from there because it was open until 2 a.m. Eddie drove a beat-up red Honda Civic with 1 missing hubcap, a cracked windshield, and a passenger door that only opened from the outside. The heater worked when it felt respected. The radio only played 2 stations. One was country music. The other was a preacher who sounded angry at clouds. Eddie's life was not terrible, but it was tired. He lived with his younger sister, Maya, in a small apartment above a laundromat. Their mother had passed away 3 years earlier. Their father had disappeared long before that, so Eddie became the man of the house, even though he still ate cereal for dinner and forgot to pay bills until the lights flickered. Maya was 17, smart, sharp, and far better at adult life than Eddie. Every morning she reminded him to drink water. Every night, she reminded him not to spend tip money on gas station nachos. Eddie always promised he would do better, and he meant it. But life had a way of taking every dollar he earned, then asking for 3 more. On that Thursday night, Eddie was near the end of his shift. Rain slapped against the windshield. The streets were empty. His shoes were wet, and Tony had just handed him the last delivery of the night: 1 medium cheese pizza. No toppings, no drink, no tip listed. Eddie looked at the receipt. The address was weird. It said, "Back entrance, Old Westgate Mall, behind loading dock. Come alone." Eddie stared at Tony. Tony shrugged. Money's money. Eddie looked at the receipt again. "Tony, this sounds like how people disappear." Tony pointed at the oven. "So disappear after you deliver it." Eddie sighed. "Do I at least get hazard pay?" Tony laughed. That was the answer. Eddie took the pizza, walked into the rain, and got into his dying Honda. The old Westgate Mall had been closed for years. Everyone in the city knew it. The front entrance was covered in plywood. The parking lot was cracked and full of weeds. The old sign still stood above the road, but half the letters were gone. At night, it looked less like a mall and more like a place where hope had been evicted. Eddie drove around back. His headlights swept across rusted loading doors, broken shopping carts, and puddles that reflected the stormy sky. There were no cars, no people, no lights. Eddie parked near the loading dock and checked his phone. No signal. Of course. He looked at the pizza box on the passenger seat, then at the dark mall, then back at the pizza. "This is how I become a podcast episode," he whispered. He grabbed the pizza and stepped out. Rain soaked his hoodie instantly. "Hello?" Eddie called. No answer. He walked toward the loading dock. A strange smell hung in the air. Not garbage, not mold, something like burned copper and lightning. Then he heard a sound. A low breath, weak, hungry. Eddie froze. "Please be a raccoon," he said. A shadow moved behind a broken delivery truck. Eddie stepped closer. The pizza box shook in his hands. "Look, I have your cheese pizza. No judgment. We all make choices." Then a pair of glowing violet eyes opened in the darkness. Eddie stopped breathing. The figure stepped into the rain. She was tall, almost 7 feet. Not human, but not monstrous either. Her skin shimmered like silver-blue moonlight. Long white hair fell over her shoulders. A cracked golden crown rested crookedly on her head. Dark armor covered parts of her body, but it was burned, broken, and stained with glowing purple blood. She looked powerful, royal, terrifying. and absolutely starving. Eddie did the only thing his brain could think of. He held up the pizza box. Delivery? The alien woman stared at him, then at the box, then back at him. Her voice was low and weak. "You brought tribute?" Eddie blinked. "Kind of. It's cheese." She stepped closer. Eddie stepped back. "Are you the one who ordered?" She tilted her head. "I sent a signal to the nearest food source." Eddie looked at his phone. "No signal, but somehow you got Tony's pizza. That's upsetting." Her knees buckled. Eddie forgot to be scared. He rushed forward as she collapsed against the side of the loading dock. The pizza nearly fell. "Whoa, hey!" The alien queen looked up at him. Her breath shook. "I have not eaten in 3 days." Eddie opened the box. Steam rose into the cold rain. The queen stared at the pizza like she had just seen a miracle. Eddie pulled out a slice and held it toward her. "Careful, it's hot." She took it with both hands, then bit into it. Her eyes widened. The rain paused in Eddie's imagination. The queen chewed slowly. A single tear rolled down her face. Eddie stared. "Is it bad?" she whispered. "This is the finest food your planet has produced." Eddie nodded slowly. "I'm going to tell Tony that, but it will make him unbearable." The queen ate another slice, then another, then half the pizza. Eddie sat beside her under the loading dock roof while the storm hammered the parking lot. For several minutes, neither of them spoke. A pizza delivery guy and an alien queen sharing a medium cheese pizza behind an abandoned mall. Eddie thought about leaving. He really did. But every time he looked at her burned armor, her shaking hands, and the way she tried to sit like royalty even while bleeding, he stayed. Finally, he asked, "So, what's your name?" The queen swallowed. "I am Queen Seraphina Velastra, sovereign ruler of the Ninth Star Court, protector of the Aurelian bloodline, commander of the Sapphire Armada, keeper of..." Eddie held up a hand. "I'm going to call you Sarah." The queen stared. "No, Seraphina is a lot under pressure. No, Sarah is friendly. I am not friendly." Eddie looked at the empty pizza box. "You cried over cheese." She looked away. "That was a royal tear." "Sure." The queen's face tightened. Pain moved through her body. Eddie noticed the wound under her armor. A deep cut pulsed with purple light. He swallowed. "You need a hospital." "No human hospital." "Okay, fair. They can barely handle insurance paperwork." Seraphina reached for something on her wrist. A small golden device. It was cracked. She pressed it. Nothing happened. Her expression changed. For the first time, Eddie saw fear. "My guard cannot find me." Eddie looked toward the sky. "Your guard?" "My army." Before she could answer, a sound rolled over the mall. Deep, heavy, like thunder made of metal. The clouds above the city lit up violet. Then the sky opened. Eddie slowly stepped out from under the loading dock, above San Antonio. Massive golden ships appeared through the storm clouds. Dozens of them, then hundreds. Elegant, bright, terrifying. They moved in perfect formation, like a royal army made of stars. Eddie's mouth fell open. Seraphina looked up with relief. "My army." The largest ship lowered over the abandoned mall. A beam of blue-white light shot down into the parking lot. Armored alien soldiers appeared inside it. Tall, silver-skinned, golden armor, long spears glowing with violet energy. They spread out quickly. Professional, deadly, angry. One soldier stepped forward. He was huge, nearly 8 feet tall. His armor had a cape, because apparently alien soldiers still enjoyed drama. He saw Seraphina sitting beside Eddie. He saw the empty pizza box. He saw Eddie's hand near the queen's shoulder. Then every alien soldier pointed a spear at Eddie. Eddie raised both hands. "Okay, I see how this looks." The huge soldier shouted, "Step away from the queen, human." Eddie stepped away. Very quickly, Seraphina tried to stand. "General Kale, stop." But she was too weak. General Kale marched toward Eddie. His violet spear hummed. "You touched the royal sovereign." Eddie pointed at the pizza box. "I fed the royal sovereign." Kale looked at the box. then at Seraphina, then at Eddie again. Poison? Seraphina snapped. It was delicious. The soldiers murmured. Kale looked horrified. You consumed unknown human matter? Eddie frowned. It's not unknown. It's cheese. Kale turned his spear toward him. What is cheese? Eddie opened his mouth, then closed it. That is a longer conversation than we have time for. Kale leaned closer. Human. Explain why the Queen's royal distress signal led directly to you. Eddie pointed weakly at his car. I deliver food. The soldiers stared. Eddie added, for money. No one moved. Then Seraphina said, he answered my call when no one else did. The soldiers lowered their weapons slightly. Kale looked at Eddie with new suspicion. You are a servant? Eddie shrugged. Kind of. You bring nourishment to rulers? I bring pizza to whoever pays. $11.99 plus tax. Kale's eyes narrowed. Then you are a food warrior. Eddie looked around. No. Definitely no. Seraphina stood with effort. Her soldiers immediately surrounded her. My ship was attacked, she said. I was separated from the fleet. Kale bowed his head. By whom? Before she could answer, the rain stopped. Not slowed, stopped. Every drop froze in midair. Eddie looked up. The sky above the Golden Fleet turned black. A second group of ships emerged. These were not golden. They were dark red, jagged, cruel-looking, like knives floating in the sky. Seraphina's face went pale. The Vorn. General Kale raised his spear. Battle formation. The alien soldiers rushed into position. Eddie backed toward his car. This has become very not my business. Seraphina grabbed his sleeve. Human Eddie. He froze. You remembered my name? You saved my life. I gave you pizza. On my world, that is not a small thing. A red beam struck one of the golden ships. The explosion lit the entire mall. Eddie ducked. Alien soldiers ran around him. The war had arrived. And somehow, Eddie was in the middle of it. General Kale shouted orders. Seraphina tried to move toward the beam, but nearly fell again. Eddie caught her. Kale saw this and yelled, Human, remove your hands from the Queen. Eddie yelled back. She keeps almost dying. Kale hesitated. That is a valid concern. Another explosion shook the parking lot. A golden fighter crashed through the old mall roof. Fire burst from the food court. Eddie stared at the burning building. I knew this mall would go downhill, but wow. Seraphina looked toward the red ships. My cousin, Lord Varric, betrayed the Star Court. He wants my crown. Eddie blinked. You have cousin drama? In space? All royal families do. That is weirdly comforting. A red armored figure appeared in the sky above them, projected as a massive hologram. He looked like Seraphina, but colder, sharper. His crown was black. His smile was cruel. Dear cousin, Lord Varric said, his voice echoing across the parking lot. You survived. Seraphina straightened. Disappointed? Only briefly. Varric's giant eyes moved to Eddie. And what is this? Eddie waved awkwardly. Pizza delivery. Varric smiled. The Queen hides behind a food servant. Eddie pointed at him. Okay. Rude. Varric ignored him. Surrender the crown, Seraphina. Your army is surrounded. Golden ships battled red ships above the city. Violet and crimson beams crossed the clouds. Pieces of burning metal fell like stars. Seraphina's hand tightened around Eddie's arm. She was still weak. Too weak. Eddie looked at her, then at the empty pizza box, then back at her. This is going to sound stupid. Seraphina turned. What? You said you hadn't eaten in 3 days. Yes. And after pizza, you could stand. Barely. Eddie looked toward his car. I work at a pizza shop. Seraphina stared at him. General Kale stared at him. Even 2 soldiers nearby stared at him. Eddie said, I'm just saying, if food helps you heal, I know a guy. Kale leaned in. Do you mean more tribute? Eddie nodded slowly. Yes, more tribute. Seraphina looked at him like he had suggested bringing a spoon to a sword fight. Then another red beam struck a golden ship. She looked back at him. How fast can you bring it? Eddie held up his car keys. Depends how much the universe respects my Honda. 5 minutes later, Eddie's red Honda Civic tore down the empty road, with Queen Seraphina in the passenger seat. General Kale folded awkwardly in the back, and 2 alien soldiers clinging to the roof because there was no room inside. Eddie drove faster than he had ever driven in his life. Kale hit his head on the ceiling every time the car bounced. "This vehicle is dishonorable," Kale growled. Eddie shouted, "It was $800. Seraphina looked at the dashboard. "Why does it scream?" "That's the engine." "Is it in pain?" "Constantly." A red Vorn drone swooped behind them. It fired. Eddie swerved. The blast hit a taco truck. Kale roared and kicked the back door open. Eddie yelled, "Hey, that door doesn't close right." Kale leaned halfway out and threw his glowing spear. It pierced the drone. The drone exploded over the street. Kale pulled himself back in. Eddie stared at him in the rearview mirror. "Okay, that was cool." Kale looked pleased. "Your approval is unnecessary. But appreciated? No." Seraphina smiled faintly. For 1 second, Eddie forgot there was a space war above the city. Then his phone rang. Maya. Eddie's stomach dropped. He answered on speaker. "Maya." "Where are you?" she snapped. "You said you'd be home by midnight." Eddie looked at Seraphina, at Kale, at the alien soldiers on his roof, at the red ships in the sky. Work ran late. A laser blast hit the street behind them. Maya paused. "Was that an explosion?" "No," Kale shouted. "Enemy craft approaching." Maya went silent. Then said, "Eddie, who was that?" Eddie swallowed. "My co-worker." Kale leaned forward. "I am General Kale of the Sapphire Armada." Maya said, "Eddie." Eddie said, "I can explain." "No, you can't." "Correct." The call cut out. Eddie groaned. Seraphina looked at him. "Your sister?" "Yes." "She sounds powerful." "She is." They reached Tony's famous pizza at 1:17 a.m. The shop was closing. Tony stood inside counting cash. Eddie burst through the front door. Tony looked up. "You're late." Eddie pointed outside. "Aliens." Tony sighed. "Eddie, I told you. I don't care what customers look like." Then Queen Seraphina stepped inside. General Kale had to duck through the doorway. 2 soldiers climbed off the roof and stood by the soda fridge. Tony stared. The room went silent. Eddie said, "We need every pizza you can make." Tony blinked, then looked at Seraphina, then at Kale, then at the glowing spears, then at Eddie. "Cash or card?" Eddie almost hugged him. For the next 20 minutes, Tony's famous pizza became the most important military supply station on Earth. Tony worked the ovens like a general. Eddie tossed dough. Seraphina sat at a booth eating slice after slice. With every bite, the purple wound under her armor glowed less. Her eyes brightened, her posture strengthened. General Kale watched in awe. "This human disc grants power." Tony pointed at him. "It's called pizza." Kale nodded. "Sacred pizza." Tony liked that. Milo from the garage was not there. Wrong story. But Tony's nephew, Ricky, was. Ricky was 16. He worked the register, and had been watching the alien soldiers with complete excitement. He whispered to Eddie, "Are we getting paid for this?" Eddie said, "Probably not." Ricky nodded. "Still worth it." Outside, the battle moved closer. Red ships circled the block. Golden ships fought above downtown. People hid inside buildings. Car alarms screamed across the neighborhood. Then Maya appeared at the front door, soaked from the rain, furious, holding a baseball bat. Eddie froze. "Maya?" She stepped inside and looked around. Alien queen in booth, soldiers by soda fridge, general in cape, Tony making pizza like nothing was unusual. Maya turned to Eddie. "You said work ran late." Eddie opened his mouth. Maya raised the bat slightly. "Think carefully," Eddie said. "Work became interplanetary." Maya stared at him, then looked at Seraphina. "You're the reason my brother is in trouble?" Seraphina stood, not fully healed, but regal again. "I am Queen Seraphina Velastra. Your brother saved my life." Maya looked at Eddie. "With pizza?" Eddie nodded. Maya closed her eyes. "Of course." The shop windows flashed red. A Vorn ship hovered outside. Speakers boomed. "Queen Seraphina, Surrender yourself, or the human shelter will be destroyed. Everyone froze. Tony looked at Eddie. Is he talking about my restaurant? Eddie nodded. Tony grabbed a pizza cutter. Nobody destroys Tony's. General Kale raised his spear. Seraphina stepped toward the door. I will not let them hurt this place. Eddie grabbed her arm. You're still hurt. I am Queen, and you just ate 6 slices. Sit down. Kale gasped. You command the Queen? Eddie looked at him. I suggest strongly. Maya stepped beside Eddie. What do they want? Her crown, Eddie said. Why? What? Space cousin drama. Maya nodded slowly. I hate families. Seraphina looked at Eddie. The Vorn will keep attacking, unless I challenge Varric directly. Then challenge him. I need my strength. Eddie turned toward Tony. How many pizzas do we have? Tony opened the oven. 6 large. Eddie looked at Seraphina. Eat fast. What followed became known later, in several classified government files, as the Battle of Tony's famous pizza. Seraphina ate. Kale and his soldiers defended the shop. Tony kept cooking. Maya organized frightened customers into the back room. Ricky live-streamed until Maya slapped the phone out of his hand. Eddie delivered pizzas from oven to booth like the fate of Earth depended on it. Because somehow, it did. With every slice, Seraphina changed. Her skin glowed brighter. Her crown repaired itself with golden light. Her armor sealed around the wound. Violet energy moved through the shop like wind. General Kale dropped to one knee. My queen. Seraphina stood. This time, she did not shake. Outside, Lord Varric's hologram appeared again. You hide in a human food den? Seraphina walked to the door. Rain and red light framed her. No, she said. I recover in one. Varric sneered. You are weak. Seraphina lifted one hand. The entire pizza shop glowed violet. Eddie whispered, Is she doing that? Kale smiled. The Queen has returned. Seraphina pointed at Varric. I challenge you under the old law. Varric's smile vanished. The alien soldiers around the shop went silent. Kale whispered, Royal combat. Eddie leaned toward him. Is that bad? It is ancient. That sounds like yes. A red beam descended in the street. Lord Varric appeared inside it, wearing black armor and a jagged crown. He carried a long crimson blade. Seraphina stepped into the rain. Eddie followed. Kale blocked him. This is royal combat. You cannot interfere. Eddie looked at Seraphina. She looked strong now, but still tired. Still wounded beneath the armor. And Varric looked like the kind of person who had never shared food with anyone in his life. The fight began. Varric moved first. Fast. Seraphina blocked with violet light. Their blades clashed. The shockwave shattered every car window on the block. Eddie ducked. Tony yelled from inside. My insurance does not cover this. Seraphina fought beautifully, like lightning given a body. But Varric fought dirty. He struck her wounded side. She stumbled. Eddie stepped forward. Kale grabbed him. No. Varric laughed. Still weak, cousin. Seraphina rose. You always mistook cruelty for strength. They fought again. This time, Seraphina drove him backward, but the Vorn ships above began charging weapons. Kale looked up. They will fire on the city if he loses. Eddie's face changed. Varric was not just fighting. He was buying time. Eddie looked around. At the pizza shop. At the delivery bags. At the old red Honda. At the strange golden soldiers who had followed him home. Then an idea hit him. A stupid idea. Which meant it was probably his kind of idea. He ran back inside. Maya shouted, Where are you going? Eddie grabbed every pizza box he could carry. Delivery. Maya stared. To who? Eddie looked out at the battlefield. The army. 2 minutes later, Eddie drove his Honda straight through the middle of an alien war. Pizza boxes filled the back seat. Golden soldiers fought Vorn troops across the street. Eddie leaned out the window and threw a pizza box toward one group. Eat! A soldier caught it. Tribute? Yes. The soldier opened it. The smell hit him. His eyes widened. He took one bite. Violet energy flared around his armor. He stood taller. Sacred pizza. Other soldiers turned. Eddie tossed more boxes. Share. Don't be weird. The Sapphire soldiers ate. And one by one, they regained strength. Their armor glowed. Their weapons brightened. The tide of the battle shifted. Kale saw what Eddie was doing. For the first time, the huge general smiled. Food warrior, Eddie shouted from the car. I said no to that title. A Vorn drone chased his Honda. Maya suddenly appeared in the passenger seat. Eddie screamed, How did you get in? You left the door unlocked. It only opens from outside. I know. She swung the baseball bat out the window and smashed a small drone that got too close. Eddie stared. Maya looked at him. Drive. Eddie nodded. Yes, ma'am. They sped past Tony's. Tony stood outside holding a pizza peel like a weapon. Ricky threw garlic knots at alien soldiers. Nobody knew if garlic knots helped, but morale improved. Seraphina saw the army recovering. She looked at Eddie in disbelief. Eddie gave her a thumbs up, then immediately hit a trash can. Not graceful, still helpful. Seraphina turned back to Varric. Now her eyes burned violet. Varric snarled. What did the humans do? Seraphina lifted her blade. They fed us. She struck. Varric blocked. But this time he slid backward. Seraphina attacked again. And again. The rain around her turned to glowing mist. Her crown blazed like a star. Above them, the Golden Fleet surged. The Sapphire Armada pushed back the Vorn ships. General Kale led the charge from the street, spear raised. For the Queen, the soldiers roared. Then, confusingly, some added, For pizza. Eddie winced. That's going to be a thing now. Varric looked up at his failing fleet. Rage twisted his face. If I cannot take your crown, I will burn this city with you in it. He slammed his blade into the ground. A red circle of energy spread across the street. Every Vorn ship above began charging at once. The sky turned crimson. Seraphina's face tightened. He is linking their weapons. Eddie parked the Honda sideways. So stop him. I need to break the anchor. What's the anchor? Seraphina pointed. Varric's black crown glowed red. Eddie stared. You need his crown? Yes. Eddie looked at Varric. At the red energy. At the alien warships. Then at the empty pizza bag in his hand. He had one last box. One large cheese pizza. Hot. Fresh. Slightly crushed from the car chase. Eddie whispered, This is either genius or how I die. Maya grabbed his sleeve. Eddie. He looked at her. She shook her head. For a second, he saw how scared she was. Not angry. Scared. He gave her a small smile. Mom would say this is dumb. Maya's voice shook. Mom would say don't miss. Eddie nodded. Then ran. Kale shouted, Food warrior! Eddie yelled. Still no. He sprinted through rain, smoke, and falling sparks, straight toward Lord Varric. Seraphina saw him. Eddie. No. Varric turned. His eyes narrowed. The food servant. Eddie held up the pizza box. Special delivery. Varric raised his blade. Eddie slid across the wet pavement, opened the box, and threw the entire pizza upward. The cheese pizza slapped directly onto Varric's face. For one perfect second, the galaxy stood still. Varric screamed, not in pain, in absolute royal disgust. My face. Seraphina did not waste the moment. She lunged forward, grabbed the black crown, and ripped it from his head. The red energy circle shattered. The warships above misfired. Their beams shot harmlessly into the clouds. Kale roared. The Sapphire Armada fired together. Golden and violet light filled the sky. The Vorn fleet broke apart. Ships retreated into the storm. Varric fell to his knees, pizza sliding slowly down his face. Eddie landed on his back beside a puddle. Maya ran to him. You idiot, Eddie groaned. Effective idiot. Seraphina stood over Varric with his crown in her hand. The entire battlefield went silent. Varric looked up at her. You needed a human to win. Seraphina glanced at Eddie, then at Tony, then at Maya. then at the soldiers eating pizza in the rain. "No," she said. "I needed a reminder that power is not always found in palaces." She turned to Kale. "Take him." The general bowed. "With pleasure." Vorn's soldiers dropped their weapons. The red ships vanished into the clouds. The Golden Fleet hovered above the city, quiet now, peaceful. Rain began falling normally again. Eddie lay on the street, breathing hard. Seraphina walked to him. Her armor glowed softly. Her crown shone fully repaired. She looked every inch a queen. Eddie looked every inch a delivery guy who had been run over by destiny. She held out a hand. He took it. She pulled him to his feet. "You saved my life twice," she said. Eddie shrugged. "Technically, Tony made the pizza." Tony shouted from the doorway. "I accept royal payment." Seraphina looked at him. "You shall have it." Tony froze. "I was joking." Kale stepped forward. "The queen does not joke about tribute." Tony's eyes filled with tears. "I love space." By morning, the government had surrounded the street. News helicopters circled above. Nobody knew how to explain what happened. A gas leak? A meteor shower? A promotional event gone wrong? Online, blurry videos spread everywhere. A glowing queen outside a pizza shop. Alien soldiers eating cheese slices. A red Honda Civic dodging drones. And one clip, viewed millions of times, of Eddie throwing a pizza onto Lord Varric's face. The internet named him Pizza Night. Eddie hated it immediately. Maya loved it. For 3 days, officials questioned Eddie. They asked about the ships, the queen, the battle, the pizza. One serious man in a black suit asked, "Did the cheese have any special properties?" Eddie said, "It was mozzarella." The man wrote that down. Tony's famous pizza became the most famous restaurant in Texas overnight. Customers lined up around the block. Tony raised prices by $1 and called it Galactic Cheese. Eddie told him that was a terrible name. Tony sold out anyway. A week later, the Sapphire Armada prepared to leave Earth. Their ships hovered silently over the old Westgate Mall, the same place where Eddie had first found Seraphina starving in the rain. Now she stood strong beneath the golden light of her fleet. Eddie, Maya, Tony, Ricky, and General Kale stood with her. Kale approached Eddie. The huge soldier held out a small golden badge shaped like a slice of pizza. Eddie stared. "What is that?" Kale said seriously. "The mark of the food warrior." Eddie closed his eyes. "No. It is a great honor. I believe you. Then accept it." "I really don't want to." Maya elbowed him. Eddie sighed and took the badge. Kale smiled. "You are now recognized by the Sapphire Armada." Eddie looked concerned. "Does that come with responsibilities?" Kale looked away. "That depends." Eddie pointed at him. "I don't like that answer." Seraphina stepped closer. Her expression softened. "You gave food to a stranger when you had no reason to help." Eddie looked down. "You were hurt. Many beings see weakness and walk away." Eddie shrugged. "My mom raised us better than that." Seraphina looked at Maya. "Then your mother was a queen in her own right." Maya's eyes softened. For once, she had no sharp reply. Seraphina turned back to Eddie. "If you ever need aid, send this signal." She placed a small crystal device in his hand. It glowed warm violet. Eddie looked at it. "What happens if I press it by accident?" Kale answered, "A battle group may arrive." Eddie carefully put it in his pocket. Good to know. A beam of golden light opened behind Seraphina. Her soldiers stepped into it one by one. Kale paused beside Eddie. "Food warrior." Eddie sighed. "General Cape." Kale looked pleased. "That is not my title. It is now." For the first time, Kale laughed. Then he stepped into the light. Seraphina was last. She looked at Eddie one final time. "Your world is strange," she said. Eddie smiled. "Your army followed me home because of pizza." "Yes, so is yours." Seraphina smiled back, then vanished into the beam. The golden ships rose into the morning sky and disappeared beyond the clouds. For a long moment, Eddie stood in silence. Then Maya said, "You still have work tonight." Eddie looked at her. "I saved Earth. And rent is due." He nodded slowly. "Fair." Life returned to normal. Mostly. Tony's famous pizza was now actually famous. Tourists came from everywhere. Ricky sold t-shirts that said, "I survived the galactic cheese incident." Maya started applying to colleges with essays. Eddie was not allowed to read. And Eddie kept delivering pizzas. Same red Honda. Same cracked windshield. Same passenger door that only opened from the outside. But some nights, when he drove under the stars, he wondered if Seraphina was up there, ruling her court, rebuilding her fleet, maybe telling important alien nobles about Earth's greatest food, maybe warning them never to insult mozzarella. One night, 3 months after the battle, Eddie was closing the pizza shop alone. Tony had gone home. Maya was studying upstairs. The ovens were off. The street was quiet. Eddie was about to lock the door when the small violet crystal in his pocket began to glow. He froze. "No," he whispered. The crystal pulsed. Once. Twice. Then a message appeared in the air. Seraphina's voice filled the empty shop. "Food warrior Eddie Lopez." Eddie closed his eyes. "Please don't call me that," her voice continued. "The Star Court requests emergency assistance." Eddie slowly opened one eye. "What kind of assistance?" A pause. Then Seraphina said, "We are hosting a peace summit." Eddie waited. And? Another pause. Then, "The guests demand sacred pizza." Eddie stared into the darkness, then looked back at the ovens, then at the stacks of empty boxes, then up at the stars beyond the shop window. He sighed, grabbed his keys, and turned the ovens back on. Because once you feed an alien queen, sometimes her army really does follow you home. And sometimes, if the universe is hungry enough, it calls for delivery.